As I'm recording this episode, it is mid-March 2024, so I really hope that you have already filed your taxes for the 2024 tax year. But I briefly wanted to go over and talk about how we handle all of the different taxes and documents associated in, a private and hard money lending company. So there are four main documents that you really need to keep track of or be aware of. The first is your 1098s, which you probably are already aware, but this is the document that you will give to borrowers showing how much interest they paid on a particular loan. And this is the same thing that you receive from your bank or whoever if you're, on your primary residence. They'll send you a 1098 showing the amount of taxes that you paid, the amount of interest that you paid over the year, and then you can typically write that off. The other different types of documents are 1099s. So there's a 1099 INT, which is going to be given to your capital investors showing how much interest they earned over the course of the year. There's also a 1099 NEC, which stands for a non-employee compensation. And this is for individuals or companies who aren't employees, but still received income like referral partners or service providers or whatever have you. And then probably the last one that you would interface with is a 1099 miscellaneous, MISC. And this would be for like legal fees or any other specific fees that didn't really fit into the other categories. Now, there are other versions of 1099s. I believe there's also a 1099 DIV, which stands for like dividend income, which is kind of outside the scope of this. But if you have like dividend paying stocks, you would receive a 1099 div. Obviously, that's not part of this, but those are the main four that we really interface and associate with. So 1098, borrower interest, 1099 INT for investors, non-employee compensation, and then miscellaneous for just kind of any other stuff. Now, as a private lender, you do have the obligation to issue 1098s and 1099s. I know it's not fun, but it is, if you're receiving or paying interest, you don't have a choice. Like you are required by the IRS to provide these documents. So you as a lender have an obligation to make sure that these are filled out and filed correctly, and also that they go out on time. I believe the deadline is January 31st, prior or after 1 month after the previous tax year. So 2024 taxes, you would have to have those out to the different parties by January 31st of the following year, which would be 2025 in this case. Okay, this is my personal belief, but if you are a small lender with like just a handful of documents, like 5, 6, 7, just have your CPA do it. They'll charge you a fee, obviously, but it is really worth the time and the effort to just like let them handle it. I don't know what it costs. You're probably maybe $100, maybe even less per document, but just let your CPA do it. Give them all the numbers and the information, obviously, just have them handle it. If you're anything beyond that, I would definitely recommend like a servicing software that just handles all this for you. So you really don't have to think about it. Obviously, we promote Lender, which does handle all this for you. It tracks all the 1099 and 1098 interest that has been accrued or paid out. And then what you can do, which we'll talk about in just a second, you can kick that out and use another service that I'll mention in just a minute. Okay, so approaches to handling this. If you're, like I said, if you're a small scale lender, just have your CPA do this. If you're like a mid to large private lender, I would absolutely use a loan servicing software like Lender. Any good servicing platform will generate these documents and keep track of all the numbers for you. If it doesn't, probably time to jump ship. You should absolutely have this. The other thing that you need to do too is make sure that all of the information that your tracking is valid and good. Like I always say, garbage in, garbage out. If you're putting in shitty data, you're going to get shit results. So just make sure that like you're keeping track of EINs and social security numbers and tax ID numbers and all that stuff so that when you go to generate these documents, it's already done for you. And we have done that in the past where like we had not great documentation or we were missing a couple of socials or things like that for investors or borrowers. And it's just a pain because then come tax time, you have to chase after these guys for their information, which is obviously not professional and not super fun to do. So another kind of like pro for Lender is when you sign up or onboard a borrower or an investor, during their onboarding process, they do have to put in their social or their EIN or their tax ID, and there's no way to advance without it. So I love it because I know like the most difficult time is to get it after the fact. Just do it right then and there. So when you're onboarding a borrower, onboarding an investor, they have to put that on and they can't bypass it. Then it's great. Then it's done. And then you don't have to reach back out to them to generate the end of year tax forms. So, okay, let's say you're at the end of the year, you've got all your numbers and your documents ready, you kick it out into a CSV. What do you do then next? We personally use a service called track1099.com. It's really great and it's actually fairly inexpensive. The reason that we like this is because it does all of the e-file for us. So a lot of the servicing platforms, they will kick out, the 1099 and 1098 forms for you, but you still have to e-file that with the IRS. Track 1099 does that for us, which I really like. And it's cheap. It's like $3. I think it's even less. I think it's like $2.65 per form. Like depending on how many you have. I think this year we spent $100 to do all that. So it was not much at all and significantly cheaper than having your CPA do it. Obviously, you have to put in good data. Like I said, garbage in, garbage out, but just have it export the CSV. You upload the CSV to Track 1099. You hit next, verify the information. You say file, pay a fee, and then you're done. And then what we do is we will take all of the generated PDFs and we will go back to our investor portals inside of Lender, the borrower portals inside of Lender, and we will just upload those 1099s and 1098s to their respective locations. The reason that we do this is inevitably on the very last day, April 15th, we will have somebody come to us or multiple people come to us and say, they're like scrambling. They're like, oh my gosh, I need my 1099. And you're like, dude, I sent this to you in January. And also it's been in your portal this entire time. So it's really nice because like, I don't have to get interrupted with, in my day, like going through and searching and finding the document and then emailing it to them. If they reach out and just be like, go to your portal. It's been there. It's always been there. That's where it will always be. And like I said, inevitably, you will always have a handful of people coming back on the last day looking for their documents. You just point them to the portal and it's already there and done. So make sure that your numbers are valid, that the tax IDs, socials, EINs, all that kind of stuff is valid, and that you have it in like a stored central location so that you can always access it at any given point, and that your borrowers and investors can also just access it on their own without having to go through you. Okay, last couple things I will say. We've already touched on like the filing deadlines, all that kind of stuff. I've just got my notes here that I want to make sure I hit. I have seen, and it's very unprofessional, I have seen people that have, over-reported or under-reported numbers. I would just say do one final last spot check. Like, for example, if you have an investor that has $100,000 with you and you're reporting, $200,000 worth of interest income, obviously those numbers don't make sense. There's no way they could have made $200,000 on the initial $100,000 deposit. So just spot check, because ultimately it's very unprofessional if you're going to send all of these numbers out to your investors or borrowers and they're not correct. And then A, it makes you look bad, but B, it's a filing mess. You have to go back and amend stuff, and it's just a major pain in the ass. So just make sure that everything is making sense, the numbers all balance, everything like that. I will say it is absolutely worth the fee and the cost of using a third-party service like Track 1099. And that way you just don't have to think about it. And like I said, Lender keeps track of all the different dollar amounts and everything for us all year long, and then it's a piece of cake. So I love it. So that is pretty much it. That's how we handle taxes. Again, it's not a super sexy topic, and I realize that, but it is just kind of a nature of the beast, and it's something you have to do. So that's what we do. If you've got a better process or a more automated process or an easier way of handling things, please reach out. I would be happy to hear it. So that's it for this week's episode, and we will talk to you next week.